Okay, guys, so what is in the bag with the world-renowned golf coach, Mr. David Leadbetter? David, how are you this morning?
I'm good, James, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So I've had a lesson yesterday. Rob's had a lesson this morning. You've sorted us both out, so we're going to be battling each other for big money when we get back home to England. Of course, today we're at the Golf Song driving range by Leadbetter here at Westbury. Here at Westbury, New York.
They might rename it.
They might rename it. I don't know. I don't know where Newbury is, but it's actually a race course, isn't it?
Race course.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about what's in the bag because so many people did ask this actually when we had our lesson. They saw your bag lurking in the background. I know you're a big fan of club fitting.
Sure.
So you work closely with Callaway on that, and we're going to just dive into what David's got in the bag, why he potentially uses them. There's a few really cool training aids in here as well. I think could help a lot of people, so we'll talk about those as well. But I'm going to kick things off with the irons, David, because irons-wise, and I think this is something which so many golfers would potentially learn. These are the Paradigm AI Smoke HL irons. HL obviously standing for high launch. We've got nice light graphite shafts in there.
Right.
Nice.
Well, you have to understand, I'm an old croc now, and I've been beaten up. In fact, I've got so many injuries. If I was a horse, they'd shoot me. You know, so you know, you're obviously using clubs that user-friendly. Something's going to help you. I mean, they've even got sort of regular shafts in here now.
Yeah.
So it's it's interesting. Obviously, a lighter club, a club with a little bit more flex in it, and obviously the head design, which enables the ball to get up in the air. You don't have to work as hard. I mean, so as you get a little older, I mean, it's like, players are not using, you get players on the senior tour, the Champions Tour, they're not using the clubs they were when they were 25. I mean, it's just the speed and so on and so forth. I mean, listen, we know some of these guys are still hitting it a long ways, but I think any club that you can get actually to help you to, I've got big hands, and so I think a lot of people neglect to get the right grip size. Yeah. Okay, I think because the problem is if you have a grip that's either too thin or too thick for you, the tendency is to grip it too high in the palm. Okay, and so I think for a lot of players, obviously we're trying to get the club down a little bit more here, and so getting the right grip thickness is really important. Experimenting and getting with your club professional or fitter and get those grips fitted. It's sort of I think a bit of a it's not talked about enough.
No, it can have a real effect on your release pattern as well, can't it?
Oh,
too thin, you'll turn it over. Too thick, you might leave the face open.
I mean, look, if we're trying to get a little bit more hand action, we'll probably suggest a slightly thinner grip. That's why I think it's important when you get fitted to tie it in with some instruction.
Yes.
Because it's always the old adage, right? Do you fit a golf club to the person's faults, or do you, work with their technique and realizing that, it's probably going to change a little bit. So we need to have a club that can maybe changeable. I mean, the great thing, obviously, with the woods now, or whatever you want to call them, metals, or whatever we call them. I mean, I thought
carbons, I suppose we call them now.
I think they've come up with the term, but they're adjustable, obviously, and you can change the lie, etc., etc. And that's the beauty, I think, of launch monitors now. We can actually see, what club gives you the best launch angle, which club gives you the best spin rate, especially we're talking with the driver. And so, you can find a club that's really will fit you well. So I'm of the opinion, you look like, I think that even with, say, putters, for instance, I think it's really important to get fitted because if you're setting up to a putter which is maybe too long, too upright, it's going to change your posture. So I've always been a big fan of getting somebody in what I feel is perfect posture and fitting the club to them. Yeah, maybe obviously depending on what's happening with the club, if it's coming in a little steep and you think, well, this is going to be tough for this person to get it shallower. Then you might have a little bit more of an upright lie, for instance. So there are things that you can adjust, and that's why getting with a good club fit is really worth it because now you've got a set of club. It's like having a pair of shoes that are perfectly fit. You're just not going to go in the shoe shop and say, listen, give me a pair of size 9, that'll be fine. It might be a size too small. So you've got to, I think it's really important, and Callaway have done a great job.
And I suppose on that sense, different shoes fit differently. A pair of Nike fit differently to a pair of Puma. Yes. So then if you go to a different fitter might fit differently as well. So the analogy works really nicely.
Precisely. So it works well hand in hand with having a little bit of instruction. And so if my suggestion always try to find a fitter that sort of has a little bit of knowledge about the golf swing as well.
Yeah, well, fantastic, David. So we go down. There's a gap wedge in there, which is a 47 degree, and again, so many golfers I think would benefit from having a proper gap wedge instead of maybe an actual wedge, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But I think if you are going to play little bump and runs with that, I imagine that just makes it a little bit easier as well.
It's nice. I mean, look, I mean, I think today, I mean, especially, I think having that sort of variation in clubs and lofts with the short irons is important. I mean, you know, I mean, yes, if you're very talented. I remember, you know, Tom Watson for years only had 13 clubs because he didn't have a 60.
Right.
I remember asking Sevi Ballesteros years ago, hey, you ever use a 60? And he said he got the club, just opened it up. I now need 60. so, you know, I mean, if you're that talented, well, that's fine. But I think having a club that, you know, with these short irons, which allows you to, you know, with the short iron, we're talking about the wedges, ideally that we can now have a shot for a certain distance. And if people practice, I mean, I tell you what, I think, you know, loft-wise, a 60-degree you've got to practice with. Okay, it's not the easiest club to sort of become proficient with.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've got it like a 58 there, which, you know, open it up, obviously it's going to get to a 60. But the as I say, I haven't spent an awful lot of time with my equipment as of late because of a couple of injuries. But, you know, hybrids, certainly. I mean, now I think, you know, I mean, I think even Bryson DeChambeau only went up to a 5-iron last week at Augusta.
It's really interesting that you do have, so the longest iron in the bag is the 5-iron.
Yeah.
And again, I imagine so many golfers can learn from this. So we go from 5-iron straight into the hybrid, which you were speaking about. So again, we've got a nice matching graphite shaft, nice thick grip with the hybrid. And then instead of a 4-iron, we have a 4-iron replacement in the hybrid, which again is just a standard 21 degree with a nice square face. So realistically, how many golfers should have long irons? I think we'd both agree not many.
Well, I think, you know, 3 and 4 irons for most golfers, they're really good for holding up tomato plants. You know, it's like that's what, because I mean, they're difficult to hit. I mean, I say, you go on the LPGA tour, I mean, they will start around 6-iron. I mean, there's a couple of them that don't, but for the most part, on the average, which I think a lot of
is that a relationship to club head speed, do you think, and launch, or is it?
To some extent, and just they're more forgiving. And you can hit them from different lies. I mean, you can chop it out of rough, you can sweep it off the top, you can, you know, I mean, so I just think, you know, the hybrid has been a boon really to golf. And it's. You know, you treat them like an iron. I think a lot of big problem that a lot of people have with hybrids, they sort of think of them as fairway woods. All right, and they're trying to sort of get the ball airborne, but you know, feel like you're taking a little divot, hitting down on it slightly, just to get the ball up in the air. You know? But they are much more forgiving. I mean, if you can hit a 3-iron well, I mean, well, you know, as I say, we know the old story. Tom Watson used to warm up with the 3-iron because he thought, well, you know, if I'm hitting my 3-iron well, I can every club well. So, I mean, but I think for most golfers, they say these hybrids, and when you take something like Bryson DeChambeau, who started at a 5-iron, you know, in the Masters. I mean, you don't see too many 3-irons even in tour players' bags. I might see a driving iron. You know, I mean, some of these 3-irons and 2-irons now are more of a driving iron, you know, to keep the ball in play slightly. In the old days, we're talking about, you know, the old ping 1-iron, you know, which was obviously very fashionable for a long period of time. But apart from that, I mean, and that's the thing, depending on the course you're playing. I mean, look, if you've got a lot of short shots in, then you definitely want to load up on the wedges. I
mean, Augusta last week, 7 woods, 9 woods in play now. So guys just making it easier for themselves. If you look at the fairway wood you've got, it is, of course, the Paradigm AI Smoke, and it's the 7-wood. So again, lots of loft. There's no 3-wood in the bag because realistically,
I mean, I think you know, it used to be a bit of a stigma. You can't use a 7-wood. I mean, you know, it's like, you know, we've got to use, you know, driver, 3-wood, 5-wood possibly. So I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you know, some players even got 2 drivers in the bag. You know?
Well, Chris, our friend of the channel, who we also do get good at golf with, he loves the 7-wood. So he actually hits his 7-wood. It's almost past my 3-wood sometimes, which is a bit annoying. But the one that everyone wants to see, the driver. So the driver, of course, it's going to be the AI Paradigm Smoke. But what really interests me here is the settings of the neutral weight, 10.5 degrees, so a little bit more loft to get the ball airborne. And again, a nice light fitted graphite shaft. So
I think, look, for the most part, I think a lot of amateurs would do better with more loft on their driver. Okay, because getting it launched, we know, look, if you launch it up in the air, it's going to go further. Okay, assuming that you're not putting a lot of spin on it. And so, I think even on tour now, I mean, listen, you do see a lot of those long drive guys have sort of 3 to 5 degrees aloft, which is amazing.
Most people can't even launch them.
Yeah, that's right. And so getting a little more of a lofted driver, I think is a big help. And just messing around a little bit with the weights. I mean, look, if you want to hit more, if you are struggling, moving it right to left, and you're hitting it left to right. I mean, just shift the weight a little bit. I mean, it's
Or go for a lesson.
Yeah, a lesson helps. I mean, but there again, it's just nice to have a setting which, I mean, that's the advantage, obviously, that the pros have. I mean, they've got all the tour vans out there.
Yeah.
They've got the launch monitors there, so they can actually see, hey, well, we've got this new shaft out. You might want to try this, and they obviously then can compare it to what they've got, and it does make a difference. Let's face it. I mean, I don't think there's probably anybody out there really that just has a standard set of clubs, that they would take off the shelf of a pro shop and go out and use them. It's like, because I say you just want something that actually, a custom fitted club. There's nothing better. I mean, then there's no excuses. Okay, now you're sort of at a point where, okay, hey, it's me, it's not the club.
Yeah. So there's no hiding place, is there? So last but not least, before we're going to talk about a few of the training aids in here as well, because you are world renowned for your training aids, which is fantastic for people trying to get better.
We sort of got to the point where we call them swing aids rather than training aids. As I say, training aid sounds, a lot like hard work, and you're going to be running around the practice area and what have you, before you hit balls. But the thing is, it's all about developing a product that can actually help somebody with their feel.
Yeah. Okay.
Because feel to me is the really important commodity. And I think it's when you're playing well and you've got a certain feeling, well, that's great. I mean, these feelings a lot of times don't last, we know. Yeah. But the nice thing about with a swing aid is that you can sort of, like the straightaway, for instance, or this, for instance, this is, we call this the boomerang, because believe it or not, it does come back. People don't.
This amazed me, actually.
Yeah. So, I got this from years ago from Callaway, because they had their putter covers had magnets in them. So what happens as you swing it, if it drops out, instead of having to bend over, you just do that and pick it up and put it back in. So
ease of use. What more do you want?
So that's why it does come back to you. Shaped like a boomerang, but it fits nicely under here, and you can use it for your connection with short shots. You can put it under left elbow, left armpit, right armpit, depending on what the problem is. If you've got a floating elbow, a flying elbow, you can stick it here and actually work on it. So it's a nice little, aid, shall we say. And, this is something we've had out for a number of years called the Swing Setter, which has got, we've got a form grip on here.
Did this used to be yellow back in the day?
It used to be blue.
Blue with yellow. Yeah.
So, it just essentially, I'm not sure we've got in the right setting here, but you can see it actually snaps here. So it just gives us the feeling that, hey, that we're actually setting the club.
Yeah.
People who sort of don't set the club very well. So it's, once again, it's a feel. And the grip is great because it's like, we know constantly when we're seeing with amateurs, I mean, their grips are horrendous, and a lot of the problems, even with the takeaway, start with the grip.
Yeah.
So if they can get their hands on where it's a little bit more on the finger, so that's so just a little tool. And say not every swing aid or training aid suits everybody. Yeah. Although having said that, this straightaway is pretty much a cure-all for a lot of people.
Well, that's the pieces resistance, isn't it? I've said that terribly.
Yeah,
I don't even know.
It fits on there, snaps on there.
Resistance.
It's got it comes in a nice little bag. You throw it in your golf bag. Just line it up there. Make practice swings at home. That's the thing. I mean, you don't have to go out and hit thousands of balls. You can just make a few practice swings at home and get the feel.
Well, the one thing I love is this one that I put in the bag somewhere.
The little one? The little short clip?
Little one?
I think it's snuck down the bag, I think.
Have I lost it?
Yeah, it's down here. So I think it slipped down.
Has it? Oh, it's my fault.
You see it?
I've lost it down. Sorry, David.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Right, I'll put it on screen now, but I'm going to take one of those home, actually, because I love that. It's a little short club that you can practice with inside. I thought we were struggling to get them in, so I've lost that down David's bag.
Well, that was the old story. I remember, I think Johnny Miller years ago got a 2-shot penalty because his little boy's club actually slipped down there, which was a stupid rule because he's never going to use it, I mean, it might have fitted Ian Woosnam, but it wouldn't fit Johnny Miller. So.
I'll empty that round the back, then we're done. Last but not least with the clubs, obviously, it's the new AI 1 putter, so a little bit of a wider blade potentially, not quite a mallet, but Very interesting again. Just a little bit more forgiveness off the face.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, look, Odyssey have been one of the leaders in the field in putters for many a year now, and so you know, this AI is very interesting. I mean, you know, if I let a secret out here, I mean, Callaway have been using AI for a long time. They're just promoting it now. So, and I mean, you know, you go out to Callaway, you go out to Carlsbad, and I mean, these guys they're all golf nerds.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think they're designing clubs for themselves. You know,
absolutely.
You know, if it works for them, hey, this is going to be great. You know, so you know, Chip Brewer encourages them to do that. All good players out there, and yeah, I mean, it's interesting in this day and age. I mean, how equipment, believe it or not, is getting better. I mean, you know, how much better can they get? Well, you know, we'll see. I mean, but at times, I mean, you know, just finding little something. I mean, you know, if you take Bryson DeChambeau had an interesting sort of approach to his irons the other day, you know, at Augusta, and so just these little things that
marginal gains, isn't it?
Marginal things which ultimately give you really a lot of confidence. Like, man, you know, these feel so good. I mean, and we know that beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. When you look at a set of clubs, I mean, is there a lot of difference between, you know, the top manufacturers? Well, I mean, probably similar shafts, you know, similar grips, you know. A lot of it is, hey, boy, I really like the look of this. And also that big word, feel. Okay, man, it just feels so good coming off the club face, you know. So, you know, especially if you've got a forged club and you can actually feel that sort of contact. And so, but it's a blend, right? You've got to have your technique right in order to sort of benefit from having the equipment that sort of fits you.
Well, David, thank you very much for your time. That is a What's in the Bag with one of the world's best golf coaches, Mr. David Leadbetter. I hope you get out there soon and get shooting in the 60s again with them.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks, Dave.
Cheers, David.